again, yeah, so I am an activist educator. And as a matter of fact, my dissertation at Fielding Graduate University is dealing with Kawaida rites of passage, and it's pronounced Kawaida. It's a
Kawaida.
Swahili word.
Correct.
Yes, yes.
Kawaida.
So Kawaida. It's
Kawaida.
a Swahili word, and it means tradition and reason. And so, but my dissertation is titled "Privileging Parent Voices in the Kawaida Rites of Passage Program." And what I want to do here, and what I am doing, is I'm researching and interviewing parents of the young boys that I have had in my program most recently, and seeking answers and questioning them on reasons and why that they wanted their middle school child to be a part of this African-centered socialization and culturalization program. And so I hope to finish that sometime later this year. And also, as you mentioned, very proud of this is our 9th year coming up. This Kwanzaa, December 26th, we know is Umoja Night, the first night of the 7-day holiday Kwanzaa. And so we hope everyone will be able to participate with us in the Missouri City area. And so I'm the co-founder of the Kwanzaa Community Celebration, but the founder of the organization that hosted, which is the Missouri City Area Kwanzaa Ujima Collective. And so this will be our 9th year, so we're very excited about that and looking forward to that in a few months. What I'd like to do is just start and just read a paper that I have prepared for a similar conference and discussion on cultural affairs, and it was related to what Tamani was talking about when he was looking and asking for people, to just put something together, how we can have a discussion around areas of resistance on this project 2025. And so, again, I offered to do something, related to cultural affairs. And of course, this is related to community cultural development. And so I'll read from my paper, and then, we can have discussion and Q&A and go from there. So we must capture our heritage and our identity if we are ever to liberate ourselves from the bonds of white supremacy. We must launch a cultural revolution to unbrainwash an entire people. That's not a Malcolm X. Quote, the key crisis and challenge in Black life is the crisis and challenge of culture. The cultural revolution gives us identity, purpose, and direction. And that's said by Dr. Maulana Karenga. So in this year, keep in mind, this May 19th, 2025, millions of people in the World African community, and that's all over the world African community, will be celebrating, commemorating the life, the birth, life, and legacy of Haji Malcolm X. So a lot of people are preparing for that. That's coming up very quickly here. Next week is May. And so I thought about that when we talked about culture, because when we talk about culture, Minister Malcolm X was right on the forefront of what we needed to do. And that's why he says, we must launch a cultural revolution to unbrainwash an entire people. And he's doing this. He mentioned this as part of his opening presentation when he founded the Organization of African American Organization of African American Unity in an Audubon Ballroom in New York City. So this was 1964, right? So, but his cogent position then remains relevant 61 years later. Today, here we are in 2025. So this is an African-centered essay and analysis of what culture is and what it provides for people. First, following the tenets of Sankofa, which we all know means go back and retrieve it. It is useful to visit ideas and philosophies of some of our African and African-American freedom fighters as it relates to our struggle to return to practices of the best of our culture. You see, the best of our culture. Secondly, I'll use Kawaida, a communitary African philosophy, which is defined as an ongoing synthesis of the best of African sensibilities, thought, and practice in constant exchange with the world. So this communitary-centered African philosophy was created by Dr. Maulana Karenga in 1965. As we know, he is currently the professor and chair of Africana Studies at California State University, Long Beach. And he's most widely and internationally known as the creator of that beautiful African and African-American and Pan-African holiday Kwanzaa, and of course the Nguzo Saba, the Black value system, the 7 principles that inform Kwanzaa. So to put forth a framework that our people have used since the Black Power and the Black Power movement in the 1960s, Kwanzaa, a celebration of family, community, and culture. So Kawaida, people have used Kawaida all over the world. So if we talk about institutions, we're talking about continuing mobilization efforts to move our people forward to fuller and freer liberation. We talk about, as I talk about, rites of passage programs, economic co-ops, various, I mean, people name their children, using the 7 principles, that comes from Kawaida, right? So I'll come back to that. Let me speak a little bit on culture. So people may have a different ideology or different terminology. So let's just create a useful working framework, and we can go from there. So when the question is asked, what is culture? People can generally support the premise that culture consists of people's way of life, right? Their language, food, their belief systems, their value systems, traditions, etc., right? So we can perhaps generally agree on that. According to Geneva Gay, she says, quote, culture refers to a dynamic system of social values, cognitive codes, behavioral standards, worldviews, and beliefs used to give order and meaning to our lives, right? As well as others. So end quote. So here's what Kawaida says. All right, Kawaida defines culture as the totality of thought and practice which by people creates itself, celebrates itself, sustains and develops itself, and introduces itself to history and humanity, end quote. So that definition offers a more expansive and comprehensive approach to culture creation, which is an ongoing human behavior, right? We create culture, so it's not static, it's ongoing, like each generation, each group. So throughout our 406 years in these 13 colonies and then the United States, African Americans' key challenge of resistance has been to do what? Be ourselves and free ourselves from cultural homicide. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called it. He called it cultural homicide. Dr. King talked about cultural hegemony, or being culturally naked or dead, from the late Asa Hilliard. So in the sense, resistance has 3 meanings. If we're talking about resistance, since we've been here, we've been resisting on cultural levels. And there's 3 levels that we can talk about: opposition to oppression, but not just the opposition in terms of resistance, but also affirmation. So in other words, affirming who we are and our humanity is in fact resistance to what the oppressor has been doing, and then also our aspirations for the future. That's also because we're thinking ahead, right? We're talking about Black think tanks. So we're thinking and, aspiring, what does freedom look like in an unfree situation? So again, what I wanted to do was just give an African paradigm. When I say African, I'm talking about continental African for the most part, because we know Africans are in the diaspora all over the world. And then also an African American paradigm. So let me start with the continental African paradigm. So here I want to highlight the West African freedom fighters that used their culture as resistance to European imperialism and colonization of Africa, particularly after the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885. So I want to use Nana Amilcar Cabral, who was the leader of the people of Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau liberation struggle between 1965 and 1973. So they struggled ferociously against, imperialism and colonization of the Portuguese. So they understood, and particularly Nana Cabral understood the centrality of culture as a galvanizing force. So in the text that's written, there's a text on a plethora of his speeches called Return to the Source, selected speeches of Amilcar Cabral regarding national liberation and culture. And so one of the highlights I wanted to say from Cabral, he says this, quote, the liberation movement must, as we said, base its action upon thorough knowledge of the culture of the people and be able to appreciate at the true value, the elements of this culture, as the different levels that as well as the different levels that it reaches in each social group. The movement must also be able to discern in its entire set of cultural values of the people, the essential and the secondary. So what is primary and what is secondary? The positive and the negative. What's the progressive and the reactionary? What's the strengths and the weaknesses? So all of these are related to culture that we have to discern at any given time, Cabral is saying. So as I interpret that, the statement as an instructive to the leaders have to discern this, right? They must correctly measure the pulse and temperament of his people at any given time to determine their ability to and capacity, their ability and the capacity to consciously struggle for its freedom. So we have to determine, are we at what point are we on our history? This year, 2025, if we think about it, our people, we've only been legally free from the Holocaust of African enslavement 160 years. Just 160 years, right? 1865, 2025. So we have to understand we have those shackles, those physical shackles removed, but we all understand for too many of us, unfortunately, they're here, the mental shackles. And this is one of the greatest struggles, right? We're struggling to fight, to win the hearts and minds of our people. And if we can't win that battle, we can't hope to win any other. We have to win the hearts and the minds of our people. So I just want to use Cabral and the victorious, I should say, and the victorious consciousness that our people in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde had. All right. So, and it took a while, but they overcame that and became an independent country out of the grasp and tentacles of European colonization. So let's use an African American paradigm. And so I want to talk about, of course, the Holocaust of African enslavement here in this country. So enslaved Africans found several ways to resist the enslavement, including cultural resistance. According to Dr. Kringer, quote, cultural resistance is the retention, creation, and the use of culture to inspire and sustain the struggle for freedom and maintain one's humanity, end quote. The slave community, we probably read that. I know I did when I was in college by John Blassingame. Dr. Kringer highlights three forms of cultural resistance that Blassingame put forth. These three forms are, one, cultural retention and synthesis. That is to say, the maintaining of forms of dances, moral narratives, music, magic and language patterns, and spiritual beliefs, right? So the sister before me just talked about spiritual beliefs. Number two, cultural creation, where people made a way out of no way, through their ingenuity, through their creativity, their creative vitality. So these are ways, that people maintain their culture. Then third, building and maintaining the African family against all odds. So this meant maintaining the socialization of the family as best as possible through the most inhuman and horrendous conditions. The love and caring for family persisted as best as it could through that terrible time. So these are cultural ways of resistance, even during the Holocaust of African enslavement, that we can use as a model, particularly given in this more industrialized and information age with all the technological tools that we have and the higher learning, supposedly, that we've been able to attain. But there is something to say about our families. We know our families have taken some hits, right? And so that's something we must continue to strive and struggle and work on. I also want to introduce a Kawaida paradigm, a Kawaida model. So during the Black Power phase of the Black Freedom Movement, David Dr. Kringer introduced his Kawaida philosophy in 1965 with the founding of the organization US, a cultural and social change organization. And us means us, we Black people. So a basic tenet of the philosophy focused on the cultural crisis and the need for a cultural revolution, which supports the precepts of Nana Malcolm X's clarion call. So Kawaida defines cultural revolution as, quote, the ideological and practical struggle to rescue and reconstruct African culture, break the cultural hegemony of the oppressor over the people, transform persons so that they become self-conscious agents of their own life and liberation, and aid in the preparation and support of the larger struggle for liberation and a higher level of human life. So as stated, Kawaida defines culture as the totality of thought and practice by which a people creates itself, celebrates, sustains, and develops itself, and introduces itself to history and humanity. And so there are several fundamental areas of culture that Kawaida puts forth. There could be others, but in constructing a concise way to look at it, Kawaida puts forth these 7 areas: spirituality and ethics, or also known as religion; history; social organization; economic organization; political organization; creative production, which is your art, your music, your literature, and dance, and then psychology or ethos, which is a collective, the collective mindset, collective psychology shaped by those other areas of activities. So those are 7 fundamental areas of culture that we as African people basically deal with, right? So that's a Kawaida paradigm, a Kawaida model, an approach to responding to this cultural issue, cultural crisis that has been identified since the 60s and even beyond that, of course. Let's think about national culture for a moment. So a key to any solution of the crisis of Black life is to build a national culture in the process of support of the struggle for liberation. National culture is the self-conscious thought and practice by which a people, again, creates itself and celebrates and sustains itself, but also develops itself and introduces itself to history and humanity. So we're not just what people say we are, it's what we do in practice. And it's not whatever, we know there's different tiers, right? People are different at different tiers of life, not their innate humanity, but their social status within this life. And a lot of times, the white press of the dominant culture, white European culture, what they tend to do is focus on those areas where people are most vulnerable, right? And then project that as the best of our people and culture. Well, we know that's not true because certainly they put up the best of who they are, but we know they got hillbillies and people and all that kind of stuff too, more than we do. It's more of them in poverty, but do they put them forth?
Right.
No, they don't put them forth first, right? But for us, they put those people who are most vulnerable and who are, under the weight of this system and unable to cope. That's who they project. And so we know that, they are brothers and sisters, but also we have to step forward and show a different paradigm and model because guess who else is looking? Our own people, our own self. We're looking at ourselves in the mirror. And if we're just looking at one source, our oppressor source, well, he's not going to give us a pretty source to look at, a positive image. All right. So this national culture can do that for us. The national celebration, for example, the national celebration of Kwanzaa, the embrace of the Black national flag, right? Red, black, and green from the Honorable Marcus Garvey. The national Black anthem, lift every voice and sing. So we have some tenets that can be used as a national coalescing, I should say, not, we have already in place national, a national theme. We have a national holiday. We have a national flag. So we just need to continue to build that national mindset that we are a collective people, right? But one of the challenges to developing this national mindset is popular culture. So in many public spaces, be it on BET or TV1, the radio and social media and comedy and entertainment, you hear the phrase what? People say what nowadays? For the culture. We're doing this for the culture. And I always constantly ask myself, but what do they mean? For what culture? Or what part of the culture? Because again, if that's the only part, hey, because even Kawawida says that's the part of it, right? That creative production, that literature, the art, the dance, the music. But is that the primary part, or is that the only part? Is that the only part that's predominantly projected in terms of our humanity? Yes, I would say. For the most part, that's the only part that's predominantly projected, right? So, however, I contend that its specific focus is on popular Black culture. Again, when we talk and when others talk about we're doing it for the culture, they're doing it for popular Black culture, right? So I contend a significant swath of Black people view entertainment as the model of our culture. That's what they use as a model. And so instead of all of it, right, a compilation or a comprehensive in those 7 areas, they just use one area and says that's the culture. So I think that does a detriment to us, particularly for our children. So though this is a part of our creative production, this is one aspect of culture that is overemphasized with our Black experience. While popular culture creates opportunities for Black people to come together for individual pleasure, escape in contemporary times, it has not been used to organize effectively, mobilize, and politicize the masses of people to achieve its liberation from oppression. Now, we have plenty of models of those that have been, particularly in the 60s, right, in the Black freedom movement, particularly who were in film or whatnot, Ossie Davis, right, or we're talking about Ruby Dee, all these people that, hey, understood they do have a platform. and used it in that sense. As a matter of fact, who was it? The Honorable and the great Harry Belafonte, right? Had to criticize and move Jay-Z and Beyonce, right? Letting them know they have a debt and they have to keep that going using their platform, right? But not just for that. Use it for, again, whatever political movement or that you can make, whatever financial thing you can do for other people in the community. So that's what we're talking about, not just focusing on the popular culture. We also have, again, as I talked about earlier, a Black cultural value system in place. The Nguzo Saba, the seven principles. That's Swahili for the seven principles. And so, as many of us know, the Nguzo Saba, the seven principles, are the hub and hinge in which the African American and Pan African holiday Kwanzaa turns on. So, Dr. King introduced this again in 65, the Nguzo Saba, and Kwanzaa came a year later in 66. So the Black value system was used so that people could use for Black community development in those, again, 7 areas of culture that I focus on. And so we all know, and feel free if you would like to say them with me, first in Swahili, then in English, we know these 7 principles are umoja, unity, kujichagulia, self-determination, ujima, collective work and responsibility, ujamaa, cooperative economics, nia, purpose, kuumba, creativity, and imani, faith. So since 1965, Black people have used this value system to create organizations, foundations, cooperatives, businesses, African-centered schools, rites of passage like I teach, weddings, naming children. Y'all know someone named Nia. Y'all know someone named Imani, right? So people have used this. Black student unions, the Council for Independent Black Institutions, co-ops, rites of passage, as I said, the National Black Social Workers, they embrace the 7 principles. The Association of Black Psychologists, the National Council for Black Studies, International African Arts Festival, which I go to every year up in Brooklyn, right? The Shape Center right here in H-Town with Lloyd Parker and the Great Shape Center, right? So everyone uses the Nguzo Saba and sees the value of it, and that's as a coalescing value system to build and rebuild our culture. And so I'll leave it there. So I want to thank you again, Brother Tamani. I just wanted to give some insights into some concepts, some terms, some programs, the value system, aspects of our national culture that we can use to continue to build as we move forward in our journey here, as our sojourn, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said here, in the wilderness of North America. And again, in the 100th year anniversary birth of the Honorable Malcolm X. I mean, it's just going to be a beautiful celebration all over the World African community next month. And then also keep in mind that in October is the 30th anniversary of the Million March, right? Called by the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, but also saved by Dr. Maulana Karenga was right there on the National Steering Committee. And I was there in 1995. I'll never forget that day, October 16, 1995. And Dr. Karenga was commissioned by the steering committee to write the mission statement. So we have a mission statement 30 years later. So we have a tangible document, the Million March Day of Absence mission statement, again, that can focus us on what we need to do. And of course, particularly on Black men, but Black men and women has to do this together, without putting Black women down. But certainly we know Black men need to step up, lead our families again. And this is one of the reasons why I do rites of passage to, have that acculturation, African-centered acculturation, African-centered socialization of our young Black boys as they grow into manhood, and to help us build, rebuild, and sustain positive Black families. So I'll say Asante Sana. Thank you very much. Now, open for any questions that anyone may have. Asante Sana.
Thank you very much, brother. Of course, I always have questions because I be taking notes.
I know you have questions.
But I will allow the sisters or a sister to go first if anybody has a question for Brother Mshinda.
Is that Sister Carolyn? All right. And I see that's Sister Tracy, the dancer, Sister Tracy.
I don't know.
Yes, it's me.
There
Hello.
you go.
All right. We talk about culture and dance. That's her right there. Africans in the dance and having that nice building made over there for the Black community. That's
Yeah.
right.
Good
Okay.
to see.
So I'm going to assume that no one has a question for Brother Mshinda. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go first. So again, brother, thank you for being here. It's always good to know that I have someone that I can reach out to, make the phone call, and they're not only gonna answer the phone, but they're gonna answer the call. So I really, 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 really appreciate you being here and helping us to navigate this thing. So a few questions. First off,
Okay.
everything that you read, is it possible to get a copy of that?
Yes, I just emailed it to you.
That'll work. That'll work. Thank you very much. So, secondly, um, if culture, in a nutshell, is what do people do to better themselves, to reinvent themselves, is creating and or adding to a culture or our culture, is it as simple as simply doing certain things on a ritualistic basis, be it every day, every week, every month, every year, and continuing forward is creating and or adding to culture as simple, quote unquote, as that, simply doing the things that we need to do to move ourselves forward?
Appreciate what you asked, Brother Tamani, and if I understand correctly. I would say it's self-conscious. It's self-consciously doing it.
Okay.
And so if we're repeating something, that's we must have found that it's good, it's sustaining, it's developing. And so we want to keep that in place. We don't want to, right? Kwanzaa is once a year, right? So we're not going to throw that away. So, however, there's different ways you can approach it. There's always someone new that didn't know that it existed last year, right? Black History Month, all these different, Malcolm X's birthday that we about to celebrate here.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those are sustaining culture, right?
Okay.
Positive aspects of our culture, right? They help us learn from
Mm-hmm.
generation to generation, from year to year, because new people are coming in that perhaps didn't have the understanding of or an incorrect understanding of something, prior to, again, maybe being corrected. So, but it's always self-conscious though.
Okay.
So I would say that would be the differentiation point, doing it self-consciously
Okay.
and understanding the value and the good in it.
And understanding the value and good in it. Okay. When you stated 7 areas of culture, but then you went on to talk about the principles of Kwanzaa. Is that what you meant by the 7 areas, the principles of Kwanzaa? Same thing?
It's not the same thing.
Okay. So
I'm
what are the
sorry.
7 areas of culture then?
Okay, something for that. 7 areas of culture according to Kawita philosophy. So we start with spirituality and ethics,
Okay.
history, social organization, economic organization, political organization, creative production. So that's our art, our literature, our dance, our music. And then psychology or ethos, which is the collective psychology that our people build and develop by participating in the other areas of culture, those other 6 areas of culture. We develop a collective psychology, right? About who we are. This is one of the things that culture gives. It provides us with identity, purpose, and direction. When you know who you are, you have a certain identity that you claim, that you accept, and that you promote and advocate for. But when you don't know, then you don't do those things. Or even if you don't, here's the differentiation again about self-conscious. When you self-consciously understand your identity, then you have a certain purpose. You know what that purpose is, and you can use your talent in any area that you want to, right? In any way.
Uh-huh.
But if you don't, then, not saying you're a bad person, but you're just unconscious and you're perhaps wasting your talent. At least it's not to the benefit perhaps of Black people and our liberation. It's probably not being put towards that. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
But
pretty
those
sure.
are the 7 areas of culture, according to Kawita philosophy. And then in Guzo Saba, that's the value system.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me go stop with that. Okay. So I know I missed one because you were talking faster than I can type on this little keyboard. So let me go back to it. Make sure I get it in Guzo Saba right.
Okay.
System. Okay. All right. So 7 areas of culture: spirituality and ethics, history, social organization. Is that right?
Correct.
Political organization.
Right. So if you just think September, social organization, economic organization, political organization.
Economic. Okay. Economic organization. Political organization, creative organization,
Creative production.
creative production, and collective psychology. Yeah.
Right. Or
Okay,
psychology.
cool.
Right.
Okay.
It's collective, right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Yes, it's collective. It's psychology, but it's a collective psychology that we develop working in those other 6 areas.
Okay. So do we have an example right now today in 2025 of a community whereby these 7 areas are actively taking place?
Yeah, I use right here in Houston. I use the Shape Center.
Okay.
You know, Deloitte Parker and the Shape Center. What is this? Their 54th year of existence coming up this year,
Mm-hmm.
June. And so obviously we know they've suffered a horrific, and I'll say we because I grew up there too. Suffered the community has suffered you know the fire to the building, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you were there, but I was there. Just the output of love and concern,
Mm-hmm.
and no one was physically injured, but I can tell you the day that I was there, I can't remember the day right now. We was there Saturday right at the Art Park, which is right next to it, on Live
Mm-hmm.
Oak. Just people were emotionally because of all of the pictures that was lost, all of the artifacts that was damaged, all of the children that have come through that building.
Yeah.
There's been generations of people that have come through that building that their grandmothers and grandfathers have brought them, and they're adults now. They came up and talked. The lawyer brought them up and spoke. So I'm telling you, that was a perfect example of community coming together in the time of a crisis, and it's a cultural community because they understand that's what Shape Center is. And as a matter of fact, I hope that they was. I talked to Deloitte today, but I didn't ask him this. That next month they also have the Pan African Festival, which is linked to African Liberation Day. So that comes out of 1963, right? In Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, when the continental African country said we have to unify against this European imperialism, and that's what they did. And
Yeah.
of course, to administer Malcolm X named Organization of African American Unity after. And one of the trying things though is now they've changed it to Africa Day. But see, here's the thing: just because they changed it, that I mean we have to change.
Right.
We still call it African Liberation Day because we're still fighting and struggling for our liberation.
That's right.
Right. But I wanted to go back to, and I'm just linking that to the Shape Center because I'm sure next month they'll also still have the African Pan African Festival right there in the park. That's where they have it at.
Okay. Okay. This next question is a 2-part, and there might even be a third.
Okay.
Can in 2025, what is Brother Mshinda's best example of a culture with power in action? Brother Mshinda's best example of a culture with power in 2025 as an example.
A culture?
Yeah. Of any group.
We're talking about us. So we're talking about Black culture, the best.
Well, I'm asking, this is a 2-part question in particular. So I'm asking this question. So I want you to give me an example of a culture that has power that's active today in 2025.
Yes, our power. First of all, our power. We resist. You talked about 2025. The document and what they're doing, what those oppressors are doing to implement it. Well,
Yeah.
we're standing up and resisting that at every measure. Things are being overturned, right? Attacking DEI, so people understand that we have the power of our own purse. So people are doing boycotts. We did that before, and it worked then, and it's going to work now. We see the numbers coming down of people going into these stores. We see that their bottom line coming down. We see their stock, coming down. So now again, it's not just resistance, opposition, but also what do we say? Whatever our affirmation, it reaffirms us in resistance. So that's what we're doing there. Also, we have particularly what are they trying to attack? This is what fascists do, right? They attack culture.
Yeah.
They attack education.
Yeah.
Right? So we're not just talking about PWIs, predominantly white institutions. They're attacking HBCUs too, and they've also done it before in more, not so much overt ways, but covertly by underfunding.
Sure.
So that's a way of attacking the schools too.
Yeah.
So that they can't do research or they can't have a lot of student admissions because they don't have money for scholarships and grants, what have you. So that's still another way, right? It's just not blatant right there in your face.
Okay.
So, but certainly, as you talked about, now people understand, regardless of who's in these positions, in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue,
Mhm.
right? We have to go back to our history and culture. There's always been the struggle, always been the resistance.
Right.
And that's what Sankofa says, right? You go back to our history and bring it forward, the
Right.
best, right? And yes, some tactics might change, some strategies might change. We have more money now. We have, more learned people supposedly. We have more technology but can we do a boycott if we need to stay off of something 381 days, like in Birmingham? That's the question.
Right.
That's the mentality question.
Yeah.
But as you said, people are now realizing, and this is what we always said, right? Cultural nationalists, we know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the nation always said this, right? Other people that we have to do for ourselves. We've always said that. There's always going to be some people that think that they can hug their oppressive chains and believe that, we're not talking about our innate humanity. We're not even questioning that, right? Hope no one's questioning that. We're talking about our social status and opportunity to equality and the equitable things that all citizens should have. So we're still fighting that fight. And the minute that we think we won that fight, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And this is my last question for you. As it relates to the Million Man March, and what came out of it with the local organizing committees,
Yes.
would you say that the purpose and mission of those LOCs coming out of the Million Man March, would you say they have not been successful as they were planned to be because there was no attachment to a culture or a cultural movement to ensure that those things happen and continue to happen?
Well, I appreciate what you asked, Tamani, and if I understand correctly, I can't not say that they have not been successful because if we recall, and it's on my shelf there, but I have several of the copies of the mission statement. 318 local organizing committees were established, 318 across the country.
Yep.
So some still may be more vibrant than others, even at that time, right? I was in San Diego, California at the time. And so I was on the San Diego local organizing committee and I was on the economic committee. And so we did, buy Black campaigns and whatnot and supporting Black owned businesses in the local San Diego, where the Black area is in San Diego, because there's not many of us there. And so, and I think about 3.5 years, but then it transitioned into an organization called Black Men United.
Okay.
But the foundation was still from the Million Man March LOC. But then it transitioned to Black Men United. And now what my understanding is there is Black Men and Sisters United there in San Diego. So I know, Brother Dr. Muhammad still has on Thursday evenings, if I'm not mistaken, the Houston LOC, because I've been on there before. I'm not on there every week. They do it Thursday. When I was going on, like Thursday, 7:30 p.m. And I need to start getting back going because we're getting close. And I'm sure some planning is going to be going on for the 30th anniversary. So, and I'm saying that to say, again, I don't have data for 318 local organized communities across the country. So, but I'm sure, at whatever level of success that they may have had, we have to count that as a success. And then if it faltered, then we have to analyze why and, regroup. And, it's 30 years later. So you have new people, some people may have transitioned. You got young people coming in. We still have the documents there. I still got the mission statement. We still have our national leaders. And so, we can regroup and reorganize and have teach-ins. It was the Million Man March Day of Absence. And the reason why we say Day of Absence is because people did not go to school. People did not go to work. But what did they do? They went to their cultural centers. They went to their churches and they did teach-ins. And mainly the teach-ins were led by the sisters, right? But they were sisters and brothers and it was like 2 million people. I got the books. I was there.
Okay.
And of course, it was sisters and brothers there.
Sure.
Because women was there giving presentations along with us. So, we got to do this together.
Yeah, because like you said initially, it's not going to work if we don't. It just isn't. Okay, I got one more question, but I don't want to hog the mic. So, Sister Carolyn, Tracy, Sundrell, Amanda, you guys have any questions before I ask this last question after I share something on the screen? Anybody got a question for Brother Mshinda?
I do not.
Okay. All right. So, Brother Mshinda, I have a, and I don't think I've shown you this before. If I haven't, then it's certainly going to be eye-opening. And I'm showing this because I'm of the mindset that our efforts to create culture has to put us in a position by which we have power to control what happens to our people on a day-to-day basis. And for me, if we're not doing that, then we're falling short on our efforts to develop culture. Have I ever shown you this organization chart before?
I have not seen it before.
This is the Mormon Church.
Okay.
Most people think that the Mormon Church is about Jesus and heaven. It's not. It's about money and power. This is what they do. And they're very good at it, obviously. The Jews do something similar, although it's greater. The Amish do something similar, although it's not as large. So my question is, how do we either create a culture by which we can develop this kind of power, because everything is about power, everything is about control, everything is about resources. How do we create a culture or add to a culture by which we don't worry so much about a Project 2025 because we got stuff in place that will allow us to continue to move forward and do what we need to do?
Let me ask you well, this will help formulate my response.
Okay.
So that chart that you showed.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying that, do you believe that all Mormons aspire to that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
You said it's from the Mormon Church. So are you saying, or do you believe that all Mormons, all, and when I say all, I mean A, capital ALL, aspire to that or follow that chart?
No. As a matter of fact, there have been some Mormons who've come out and said, our leadership is too much focused on money.
Okay.
We need to not only be so focused on the money, but and since we have so much money, we need to give more of it to those in need.
Yeah.
So hell to the no, to the capital ALL.
Okay. Well, one of the aspects then is that we also have to understand that all 40 million plus of our people here are not going to
Amen.
move the same direction.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right.
Sir.
We're looking for and hopefully we're looking for and can attain a significant number.
A critical mass.
A critical mass of like-minded people.
Yes, sir.
Like-minded people.
Yes, sir.
And like-minded, meaning we're focusing and struggling for our liberation.
Yeah.
But also understanding that we're going to have different ways, strategies, methodologies of attaining that.
Yeah.
So therefore, the ideology that Dr. Karinga put in the movement, introduced to the movement in the 60s, the Black Power movement, operational unity, unity without uniformity, unity within our diversity, in principle and practice. So understanding that, okay, first of all, now you do have to have goals and aspirations.
Yeah.
And bring organizations, national, local, what have you, together and come to understanding what is it that we can do together where we can build this critical mass, and then let's work on that. And I mean work it. Because if we're going to do something with rites of passage for girls, then do something with rites of passage for girls and don't go someplace else.
Yeah.
Stay on that.
Yeah.
Right? And then if someone is doing something else, economic co-ops, building farms and those types of things, then y'all stay on that. Because we keep moving away from it, it doesn't get built.
Right. And it doesn't get there yet.
What is your expertise? So focus on your expertise, but then bring them together. We do need to bring them together.
Right.
But you bringing your expertise together and you're developing it and you're staying on it. And then, then you grow it. That's how you grow it. Just like a seedling. You have to put the seedling out there. You have to nourish it. You have to get the sunlight. You have to get the minerals, right?
Yeah.
And you had to pick the weeds out.
Yeah. Because there's gonna be some weeds.
So it can grow.
Right.
But if you don't stay on it and move to something else, that what you started is going to die. It's going to wither away and die.
Right. Right. Amen.
But we know we also, the challenge of capacity, right? People capacity and capital in terms of money, right?
Yeah.
So we have that challenge as well. But then that's when you come together with like-minded people for a like purpose, and then do it collectively.
Yeah.
If you look at the majority, and that's where we go back to the Nguzo Saba, it's collective development, right? Ujima, right? Collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa, cooperative economics.
Right.
Right. So all of these are talking about Black community development. So when we can have our people understand that, we're never going to get 40 million people to do the same thing.
That's right.
Because we all understand we all live in this America.
Yep.
And we say in the organization, we're American by habit and African by choice.
Right.
And African is collective. But we've been here for so long, most of the time we think individual.
Yeah.
Or we don't unify.
Yeah. Well, when your oppressor educates you, you tend to think like him, which is part of the problem. Yes, sir.
We have to break that monopoly. We have to break that that monopoly that the oppressor has on so many of our people's mind. That's why we say.
I agree.
We can't envision freedom or think about it, we can't attain it.
Right. Yeah, because everything, of course, starts with the spirit and the mind. Amen.
Particularly if we don't think that, particularly if we think that we're still free, then there's no need to struggle. There's no
right.
Need to
right.
Free already.
Right. Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why I said for the conscious Black person or African, Trump is a blessing because he's going to force Negroes to realize you ain't free. This is still America, and you got work to do. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that can be a good thing. Okay. So
this is America. Isn't that the song?
Yeah, this is America. Yes, sir. That needs to become an anthem for some people. Yeah. Yes, sir. And we got to be reminded that this is still America, and you're still a melanated African descendant. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it. Do you have anything you want to say in closing before we close this thing out?
Again, I want to say Asante to you, brother Tamani, for staying on it, and look forward to being able to continue to work with you and present or whatever else we can do together.
Yes, sir. No doubt. Yep.
I want to say Asante Sana, thank you very much to all the people that's on the line. Thank you for sharing some moments out of your time, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Amen.
And also, as we say in the organization, keep the faith, hold the line, right? Yes. So keep the faith and hold the line.
I like that. All right. So along with keeping the faith and holding the line, always remember that no one can do everything, but if everyone does something, everything will get done. And absolutely, always remember that nothing is more sacred than the empowerment and freedom of African people. Because if our people are empowered and if our people aren't free, you're not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. Our kids won't make it, and our loved ones won't make it because they are attached to the people. But if we put the group first, if we build the tribe first, if we build the nation, then the nation will have the power to protect the people, and we'll all be okay. So on that note, thank you guys very much again. We have one more. I'm sorry.
One more. See, we bouncing off ideas. You make me, you help me think of something else. So I'll just say this too. This will be my closing remark. So it's our duty, right, to know our past and honor it, to engage our present and improve it, and to forge a whole new future in the most ethical and expansive ways. So I'll leave it there. To know our past and honor it, to engage our present and improve it, and to forge a whole new future in the most ethical and expansive ways. Asante Sana.
As I requested what you were reading earlier, add that to the list because I like that. So send that to me as well. We have one more presentation for the day. It's the last one of this 2-day conference. It's at 5 o'clock. It is on the development of our own think tanks because God knows we need it. And then we'll close this thing out and get about this righteous work. So thank you guys again. I appreciate it. Thank you again, brother Mshinda. I appreciate you, brother. Much love, much respect. And I hope to see you guys at 5 o'clock. Y'all have a good one.
Asante Sana.
Asante Sana.